so that everyone has a chance within a reasonable period of time, we're just going to have a 3-minute first round.
Mr. Chairman, we need more than 3 minutes.
We'll
We need more than 3 minutes.
try to have a second round then. We have to also have a schedule here. So we'll go to a second round if we can fit that into Secretary Gates' schedule. If not, we will pick this up at a later time. The Secretary, well, now this schedule was shared with everybody here now, and so
Not with me.
It was indeed shared.
You're the chairman.
Mr. Secretary, the Washington Post, I think this morning, reported that the military services will not pursue any longer disciplinary action against gays and lesbian service members whose orientation is revealed by third parties. Is that one of the degrees of latitude within existing law that you're looking at?
Mr. Chairman, a preliminary assessment is that, and this fits within this 45-day review that I mentioned in my prepared statement. The preliminary assessment is that we can do the following within the confines of the existing law. We can raise the level of the officer who is authorized to initiate an inquiry. We can raise the level of the officer who conducts the inquiry. We can raise the bar on what constitutes credible information to initiate an inquiry. We can raise the bar on what constitutes a reliable person on whose word an inquiry can be initiated. Overall, we can reduce the instances in which a service member who is trying to serve the country honorably is outed by a third person with a motive to harm the service member. And we to devise new rules and procedures in light of the appeals court decision in Witt versus the Department of the Air Force for the areas of the country covered by the appellate court. So I would say all of these matters are those that will be reviewed within this 45-day period. So it's a little more complicated than the Washington Post conveyed.
All right, but all of those are possibilities.
Yes, sir.
Now, would you, assuming it, even if it requires legislation, would you support a moratorium on discharges under Don't Ask, Don't Tell during the course of this up to year-long assessment that the Department is going to be making?
I would have to look into that because the problem that we have is that all of the issues that both Admiral Mullen and I described in terms of what we have to look into, in terms of the effect on the force, in terms of everything else, is what we need to examine before I could answer that question.
All right. Well, you're going to be examining the other points that you're looking at, the other flexibilities.
Yes.
Would you add this to the questions you're going to look at and let us know promptly
Sure.
as to whether you would support a moratorium pending this period on discharges? That doesn't mean you couldn't discharge at the end of the period, but there'd be a moratorium.
We will look at it, Mr. Chairman. I would tell you that the advice that I have been given is that the current law would not permit that. But
I'm saying, would you support a change in the current law, if necessary, in order to permit that? That's what we need to hear from you on. Senator McCain.
I'm deeply disappointed in your statement, Secretary Gates. I was around here in 1993 and was engaged in the debates. And what we did in 1993 is we looked at the issue, and we looked at the effect on the military, and then we reached a conclusion, and then we enacted. Your statement is, the question before us is not whether the military prepares to make this change, but how we best prepare for it. It'd be far more appropriate, I say with great respect, to determine whether repeal of this law is appropriate and what effects it would have on the readiness and effectiveness of the military before deciding on whether we should repeal the law or not. And fortunately, it is an act of Congress, and it requires the agreement of Congress in order to repeal it. And so your statement, obvious, is one which is clearly biased without the view of Congress being taken into consideration. Admiral Mullen, you're the principal military advisor of the President. Do you, and you have to consult with and seek the advice of the other members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the combatant commanders. What, in your view, are the opinions of the other members of the Joint Chief and combatant commanders about changing this policy?
Senator McCain, as the chairman indicated earlier, they'll obviously be out in their posture hearings in the near future, and I would certainly defer to them in terms of exactly
Well,
how they want to say that.
in the near future, I'd like you to ask them, and we could have it on the record what their position is in the
Yes,
near
sir.
future.
Yes, sir.
We'd like it as soon as
I've worked very closely with them over the last months in terms of understanding what their concerns, what our overall concerns are, and I would summarize them by saying it's really important for us to understand that if this policy changes, if the law changes, what's the impact and how we would implement it. And to Secretary Gates's point about the study, is to really understand objectively the impact on our troops and on their forces, and that is their biggest concern.
And I would say, Senator McCain, I absolutely agree that how the Congress acts on this is dispositive.
Well, I hope you'll pay attention to the views of over 1,000 retired flag and general officers. What kind, Mr. Secretary, what kinds of partnerships or unions would the military be prepared to recognize by law in the event that this don't ask, don't tell is repealed?
That's one of the many issues that I think we have to look at, Senator.
So, again, you are embarking on saying it's not whether the military prepares to make the change, but how we best prepare for it, without ever hearing from members of Congress, without hearing from the members of the Joint Chiefs, and, of course, without taking into consideration all the ramifications of this law. Well, I'm happy to say that we still have a Congress of the United States that would have to pass a law to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, despite your efforts to repeal it in many respects by fiat.